latest pandemic movie to be released among other pandemic movies when a real life pandemic is occurring. Oh, yes, let's get right into it. This movie was released exclusively on Netflix on June 9th, 2021, and is directed by Mark Raso. Let's get right into it. Global hysteria ensues after a mysterious catastrophe wipes out all electronics and takes away humanity's ability to sleep. That's right. Scientists race against the clock to find a cure for this unexplained insomnia before its fatal effects eliminate the entire human race. When Jill, a former soldier, discovers her young daughter may be the key to salvation, she must decide whether to protect her children at all costs or sacrifice everything to save the world. Now, in a nutshell, that might sound interesting. Unfortunately, I saw the movie. Now, before I saw the movie, I saw the actual trailer, and it looked okay. I will say that much. This movie is wrapped up in 96 minutes. Now, sometimes that's good to have a movie that's short, doesn't go on forever. But there's so many unexplained things in this movie, it probably needed to be explained. So let's get into it. First off, there's been a couple pandemic movies that have come out during our current pandemic, one being Songbird. Now, I did a review on that movie. It is deplorable. It's horrible. It's a train wreck. It's a hot mess. All the above. It's just bad, bad, bad. I did a review on that. It's just a bad movie. Check out my review. So again, this is another pandemic movie coming out during an actual pandemic. And in this movie, this is the premise. Something happens, whether it be a comet or something, that basically screws up the world's gravity or maybe the way the world turns. Again, it's not really explained that well in this, but all electronics just stop. So cars start crashing into each other and people can't sleep. Now, there's no explanation to why all of a sudden people can't sleep. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit here. So let's go over the cast of this movie, because there's some interesting actors in this movie. The main actress is Gina Rodriguez. Now, you know her from Jane the Virgin, a very popular television show. She plays the character of Jill. Now, she's a former soldier, a single mother, and in the beginning, I'm not sure if she's a drug dealer or what she's doing, but we also learned that her two children are no longer in her custody. As a matter of fact, I believe it's her former mother-in-law that's raising them. Again, that's not really explained either. She's portrayed by actress Frances Fisher, playing the ex-mother-in-law. She plays Doris. Now, Doris is responsible for taking care of Jill's two children, Noah, portrayed by actor Lucius Hoyos, and Matilda, portrayed by actress Araina Greenblatt. Now, before I get into this movie, I want to say these are good actors, and they can only do what they're given. Hence the screenplay. That's right. Okay, so we got a few other actors we're going to explore in this movie, but essentially it opens up that she's a soldier, drug dealer. Now, there's going to be some spoilers in this movie, so if you're dead set on seeing this movie and you can stay awake while watching Awake, stop watching my review now, go off and watch the movie, and come back and read my comments. But I don't recommend this movie, so I'll just say that much right now. So I'm going to get into the movie now. So again, she doesn't have custody. She's trying to get custody of these kids, and all of a sudden, something happens. Cars crashing into each other, and it's just chaos. And all of a sudden, they realize they can't sleep. But I won't give the spoiler away. For some reason, Matilda, the daughter of Jill, can sleep. So she's an anomaly. So right away, everybody's mesmerized by the fact she could sleep. And now she's, scientists want her, the whole nine yards. So this turns into a bit of an adventure. And I say a bit. It's not really a good adventure at all. We're introduced to another few actors. Now, there's a few actors here that are completely wasted in this movie. For example, we have a pastor we see for a brief moment in time in this movie, portrayed by a really good Canadian actor, Barry Pepper. Fantastic actor, Saving Private Ryan, another number of really good movies. But anyways, he's wasted in this movie, I'll say that much. And then at the same time, in the same scene, we're introduced to another great actor too, Finn Jones, who portrayed Marvel's Iron Fist on Netflix. He portrays Brian, and he's wasted in this movie too. So I'm not sure what's going on here. But anyways, these two actors are wasted. I won't get into what goes on here, but now everybody's after Matilda. And this movie starts going from 1 day of no sleep to 2 days, and believe it or not, into 5 days. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, firsthand, I've gone with sleep deprivation for a couple days, and it's a nightmare. I will tell you right now, you cannot function properly. Um, your body really starts to feel sick. You really start to shut down, and you do see things that you normally don't see, and that's going on for 3 days and no sleep, etc. Now, the fact that these characters can go 5 days without sleep, I mean, yeah, during the fifth day, we see some realistic moments here where they're hallucinating, but the fact they can still even walk around, drive vehicles, and not get into car crashes is just amazing. And believe it or not, I'm a huge coffee fan. There's not one indication anybody's drinking coffee to help them through this. I will say, there's a little vaccine they use throughout this movie to kind of keep them functional. I don't know what that is. Again, it's not explained. So there's a few issues with this movie right off the get-go, is we don't get a true explanation of why this is happening. And maybe because they thought this movie might spawn into a sequel. I have no idea. But anyways, the scenes, the situations they get into just aren't convincing enough. There's a scene where a whole prison, I guess, was let loose, and essentially everybody's walking around, all these prisoners, and they're hallucinating, and they're trying to hurt Jill and her daughter and son. We're also introduced to a character by the name character named Dodge, portrayed by a really good actor, Shamier Anderson. So he plays one of the convicts that escapes, but he's got a heart of gold. He's a nice guy, etc. And he kind of teams up with them for the most part. But again, just like all the other actors like Finn Jones and Barry Pepper, I think he's wasted in this movie as well. He's kind of just a side character. Um, we watch them get to towards the end of the movie. They're starting to meet with the compound, the military compound, where soldiers are starting to go crazy with lack of sleep. And I won't get into that too much. There's some spoilers there. Introduced a couple more side characters here. A female doctor, Dr. Murphy, portrayed by a famous 80s actress, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Now, I saw her in another movie on Netflix that just came out this past year too, which I did a review on too. The Woman in the Window, and that movie wasn't very good either. Similar to this movie, so it's interesting that she's come back now in two movies that aren't that good. We're also introduced to Dr. Capt, portrayed by Canadian actor Gil Bellows, who is an Ally McBeal. And again, he's only here for a short time too. The movie just is fast paced, but not in a good way. It's fast paced. It goes from this to that to this, and it just, to me, there was nothing to it. You've seen all these scenes before in a typical pandemic movie or an episode of The Walking Dead, for example. We've seen it all before. To me, it was unsettling. I just kept watching the fact that these people could go without any lack of sleep, and that how far they could go. Now, I'll give credit where credit due. Jill, perhaps, if she's a soldier, is used to sleep deprivation. So I could see her going a little further. But the other characters, like her son, Noah, who's a teenager, how does he go that many days without sleep and he's still functioning? And they're not irritable with each other, or trying to, they're getting mad. Because you would find your temper would be at an all-time max. At this point, your patience would be an all-time low. So I just don't see how this movie works. I can understand it being maybe 3 days max, but going into 5 days, that was a little much for me. You do find out what the solution is to get sleep at the end, and I don't know. I just felt that there's got to be other places in the world where they can figure that out. And this whole premise that she could save the world, well, by the time they figure this out, most people have probably either died or their bodies have shut down. Because without a lack of sleep, you're basically, your body just is going to shut down. You're going to die essentially. So the fact that the whole world could carry on like this, it just wasn't very believable. The action sequences, we've seen them all before. I gotta say, there is one tense scenario I thought there was in this movie between her and a group of convicts. To me, that was somewhat interesting, but then that just went to the wayside as well. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I actually had a hard time staying awake during this. It wasn't a compelling movie. And you actually didn't really care for anybody in this movie either. You think you'd care for the children. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them by any means, but you just didn't feel that level of concern you would in any other movie. I gotta say, I don't know if it's a good idea making a pandemic movie during a pandemic. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. It seems like bad taste to a certain degree. Songbird was, is 100 times worse than this movie. Don't get me wrong, okay? This movie is not the worst movie I've seen, but it's not a very good movie either. Songbird, on the other hand, was a complete disaster. There's nothing good. There's not one pro in that entire movie. Again, the actors can only do what they do. But I just felt the movie was way too rushed, in an hour and a half. Or make it part one and have maybe a trilogy to explain better why this is happening, because a lot of it was left up to the audience to put together, essentially like a puzzle. And I wasn't that interested in putting it together by the end of the movie. It was an okay movie. Would I ever watch it again? No, I wouldn't. It just I got distracted by watching it. I had to look at my phone a couple times. I got bored, to be quite honest with you. And the trailer, it's one of those movies where the trailer actually is better than the movie. You know, it is what it is. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do I give this movie Awake? I sadly give it a 4 out of 10. It's not the worst movie ever, but I can't recommend this movie. It's just not that good. Yeah, again, I just don't think it's a smart idea to make a pandemic movie when there's an actual pandemic going on. I don't think that's going to gain an audience at all. I think people are already stressed out with the current pandemic, even though it's hopefully, knock on wood, coming to an end at some point. But yeah, I just don't think it's a smart choice. Yeah, there's a few other actors I won't get into in this movie. It was filmed in Canada. I believe it was filmed in Ontario. And I mean, some of the scenes were cool, but again, it's just a very forgettable movie, unfortunately. And I wish Gina Rodriguez well in her next movies or next series, because she was very good in the TV show Jane the Virgin. I just feel like of the other actors, they can only do what they're given. The real blame goes to the screenwriter and the director here, and whoever put this idea together. It doesn't work for me. I didn't enjoy this film. Anyways, if you've seen the movie Awake and you're able to stay awake during Awake, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe, like my channel. See you later.